Hello, everyone, and welcome to this talk where I'm going to discuss techniques to manage Odoo dependencies in your projects using off-the-shelf Python tooling and basically PyPI and pip for installation. And the story behind this talk is that when I started using Python, it was a long time ago in the 90s, it was version 1.4 in 96, I think. The good thing is that Python has its batteries included approach that was very powerful, but when you need it more, when you wanted to look for additional libraries, you had to search the nascent web and forums, download the tarball, look into it if it was reliable, compile it if needed, and then you had to update your Python path. Read the documentation to find the dependencies, and then start again until everything eventually worked. It was a bit complicated, but those were the good days. But then 20 years forward, the Python packaging landscape are really evolved. And today, installing Python libraries has become very, very easy. We have this Python package index that you can search or look on GitHub. Of course, you still need to assert that what you're going to install is trustworthy. There are no security issues, that the contributor is reliable, that the code is clean, and so on and so on. That's still up to you. It's open source. But then when you want to install it, it's just a matter of typing pip install and the project name, or pip install followed by the project name and a Git reference. And pip is going to automatically discover dependencies in the metadata of the project and install them for you. And unfortunately, using Odoo, it doesn't work that way. And Odoo has not been pushing an approach to publish standard Python packaging. And so when I started doing Odoo and OpenERP, basically the story to install Addons was the same as what it was for Python 20 years ago. It was, you had to search GitHub or the App Store, of course, check that it's reliable, download. Then you have this addons path. For Odoo, it's not the Python path, it's what they call the addons path. You need to update it manually, then read the documentation of the package to find the dependencies, download them, and go again until it eventually works. And it's not really a fun process, especially when you want to experiment with new stuff. And so this situation, I found it very complex and very sad. And I was asking myself if we could do better and basically bring installation of Odoo add-ons to the modern Python packaging standards. And that's the topic of this talk. So a few words about me. So I'm Stéphane. I'm a founder of Addons, a software engineering company focusing on open source and open standard technologies. I'm an elected board member of the OCA since a few years now, and I'm mostly focusing on support and infrastructure. And I'm also a pip committer since a couple of years, and so this means I'm also involving myself in the broader Python community. So these are my contact details. I'm easy to find. And so the agenda for today is that I'm going to show how to install Odoo add-ons in the very easy way using pip. I discussed a little bit why I consider this is a superior approach and the benefits you can get from those, also the benefits we can get as a community. I'll dive a little bit on how this works, what's the basic concept that making this works, and discuss this famous Odoo add-ons path. And then I explain how you can, I give you ideas of you can use it in your Python projects to pin dependencies and use an upstream first workflow when you can contribute to the community and then use the contributions in your project. And then hopefully there will be time for a Q&A session. Okay, so back to the future. How can you use pip to install your Odoo project? Well, actually, it turns out it's very easy. The first thing I always recommend, and that's true for any Python project, is to work in a virtual environment. Even if you are in a Docker image, always create a virtual environment to isolate your Python environment from system dependencies or the Python library that are on your machine or on your Docker image. Then it's nice if you work interactively, at least to activate the virtual environment. Basically, what this does is that it is going to insert venv/bin in your path and not much more. Then when it's activated, I also recommend to upgrade pip to get the latest version and install the wheel package. And then when you have a good virtual environment, you install Odoo. So assuming you have cloned Odoo and you have a local copy of Odoo, you can do it like this. So you pip install -r to give it the list of requirements that are not good for Odoo. They test them for us. And then -e to install Odoo in editable mode. That means that the Odoo source code will stay in that directory and will not be copied in the side package directory of the virtual environment. I'll get back to this later. And then if you want to install an add-on that is on PyPI, it's simply like this. You type pip install, and then we have a convention because the Odoo add-ons is a flat namespace. To make it easy to find them on PyPI, we have this prefix. So the Odoo, the version number, -addons, the package name. And it's going to be automatic. And we come to the very interesting part, is that it's going to find all the dependencies and the metadata and install them for you. And also you get nice version numbers, so you can use that later to make your deployment repeatable. And those dependencies are going from different repositories, but you don't need to care about them at this stage. And then when you start Odoo, you don't need any configuration file, but you don't need, in particular, you don't need to set the add-on path. And when you start Odoo and you have Odoo add-ons installed this way, you see that Odoo is automatically inserting in the add-on path this side package /Odoo/addons directory. It's inserted in the add-ons path for you, and I explained just after all this work in practice. So you don't need to mess with add-on path to add in your path all the repositories you have cloned. It's much easier. And I come back to this editable mode a little bit later. So obviously, it's easier. I think it's non-controversial. You just type that, dependencies installed automatically for you, no messing with the add-on path. You can get easier than that. The other benefit is that it gives you the possibility to pin individual versions. So when you are running customer project, it's of course very important to pin your dependencies so that when you deploy new versions, you are not obliged to retest everything. Even though there are high-level quality process in OCA, you are always at risk that something is breaking compatibility or new bugs are introduced. So you don't want to retest everything every time you deploy a little change on your project. So important that when you redeploy, you are sure to redeploy the exact same version. And this approach allows you to pin in versions of individual add-ons as opposed to pinning the full repository. And when you have many add-ons from the same repository, it's important that you can upgrade one without upgrading all the others. And this method allows you to do that very easily. And finally, there is a broad set of advantages, which is that basically we are using techniques that are based on standard Python ecosystems, techniques and tools. And so you naturally benefits from Python community made by the broader, by improvement made by the broader Python community. You can benefit from learning resources you find on the internet outside of the Odoo community. You get automatic support by your development environment. And we can imagine that we will benefit from other tools, like if we start publishing security vulnerabilities about OCA Addons, for instance, you could use tools like Dependabot to be automatically warned about dependency security vulnerabilities in your project. And finally, you can really leverage PyPI as an app store. Since version 15, we have a version classifier for Odoo, so you can search all the add-ons for Odoo 15, and you get them there. And for each one, you get a nice presentation with the README, the version summary, the link to the repository, and so on and so on. And so we really leverage what the community, the broader Python community is doing, and we don't need to reinvent our own wheels in the Odoo community, which is unfortunately a tendency we have. So how does this work? Well, the important part to understand is how the Odoo add-ons path is working. And basically, if you look closely, what you set in your add-ons path option of Odoo ends up in this variable. If you start an Odoo shell and do import odoo.addons and print this odoo addons.path, you will see that it's more or less the same as what you have put in your add-on path. And the reason for that is that odoo.addons is actually a regular Python namespace package. And in Python 3, all this work is that any Odoo/addon directory that is found in your Python path is automatically added to the Odoo addons path, that is to this variable of the Odoo addons namespace package. And there is no trick behind that. Actually, Odoo is really based on that. And in recent version, they have even simplified the way it works to get rid of special acts that had to be done for Python 2. So it's really clean and standard-based approach. There is no magic behind it. And the other part is that to package and to create a Python project out of an Odoo add-on, we need to leverage the fact that for an Odoo add-on, all the metadata is found in the manifest. And so the way I've done that so far is that by using a setup tools extension, which is called setup tools-odoo, that works like this. If you create a setup.py file, which is one way at least to configure setup tools, you can simply say that you want to use this setup tools extension, and then say that this project is actually an Odoo add-on. And what happened with that is that you're basically telling setup tools to look for one add-on in the Odoo/addon directory and compute all metadata from the manifest. So it's going to get the name of the package, the version, the dependencies from the manifest of the package. So that's how we transform a repository with Odoo add-ons into regular Python project, and that's why you see all these setup directories in the OCA repositories. And now, how to use that in your project? Well, the simplest approach is creating a simple requirements file and installing like this. A convention is to use requirements.txt.in to distinguish it from requirements.txt, where you typically put the freezed version numbers. So you list the dependencies in that requirements.txt.in. So you put the URL of the Odoo requirements. So that's basically an include from an internet reference. So we can go fetch it on GitHub. Then you can put a Git reference to Odoo itself, and you select the branch. Again, we have to use editable mode for Odoo if you want it to work out of the box. And then you list the add-ons you want to use in your project. So I list one. You can list it from the name, and it is going to look on PyPI. By the way, if you want, you can configure your own package index. There are tools out there which you can install to have a PyPI mirror locally, so you don't need to rely on internet for installation, for instance. But you can also depend directly on unmerged and unpublished branch by using this syntax. And this is the mix of Python standard and pip syntax, which basically says, I want to install this project. So that's the PyPI project name. But I don't want to look at it in the index. Instead, I want to use this Git URL. So you prefix with Git plus to tell pip that it's going to be a Git reference. You give the repository link. And then what's also important is that you need to give this subdirectory option to pip to tell it where is the root of the Python project. Typically, an Odoo add-ons repository contains many different add-ons, but in our approach, we want to have each add-on to be an autonomous Python project. So we have to tell pip where is the root of the project. And in that case, it's in the setup directory / the add-on name. And that's where you find the setup.py. And finally, you can give it the pull request or branch. If you don't say it, it's going to use the default branch. But you can use a pull request reference like this. And so this way, you can include in your project pull request you have created yourself or pull request you have been created by others. And usually this is sufficient to do it this way. And often people use Git aggregator because typically you want several PR from the same project, but it's very rare that you want to mix different PR on the same add-on. That's really the exception. And so in normal situation, you don't even need Git aggregate to do this. You just point pip to your PR and you're good to go. So that's how you set up your basic dependencies. And then when you have installed that, you can use pip freeze that will give you this requirements file where it will convert or where it will add the project versions from those that come from PyPI. And from those that are Git reference, you get the branch name replaced by the commit hash. So your guarantee is to have a fully reproducible build, and even if the PR evolves or the branch evolves, you are guaranteed to reinstall the exact same commit that you were using during testing. And an also important part is that when you install from this requirement.txt file, pip will build wheels for everything. It will download wheels from internet, but from those it will build the wheel from Git, and it will add it in the local pip cache. So subsequent reinstallation will be very fast because they are cached. Of course, if you want to be super precise, you need to tag your Git reference so the builds are reproducible. So for instance, it might be that this commit disappears from Git from GitHub for some reason, because there have been a force push or something. So if you rely on that, it's best to use your local branch of that and tag it, so you are sure that you will get fully reproducible builds. But that's true for any Git reference you're going to use, of course. All right, so that's the basics, and then you can go further. I'm going to give you a few tips here. So the first thing is that I really recommend to always use the latest version of pip. So the latest that was released earlier this month is 21.3, and it added a fast git clone option using git clone fighter blob none, which means that even doing a pip install of Odoo from Git is going to be reasonably fast. You don't need things like Git auto share and stuff like that, thanks to this very nice evolution. Also, I've shown you that for Odoo, it's recommended to use -e. That's because there is a limitation in Odoo setup.py, which is that the add-ons are in two different directories. And I've created a pull request that I'm discussing with them for integration. So if you don't want to use Odoo with -e, so you can benefit from pip caching and so on, I really recommend to make your own branch of Odoo using like Git aggregate, for instance, to include a dispatch, so you don't need -e to install Odoo. Another tip is that for older Odoo versions, the name of the packages on PyPI was Odoo with the Odoo version number. That was necessary because the pip dependency resolver was too, let's say, rudimentary to find the correct version. But now that the pip resolver is much more sophisticated, we don't need that anymore. And so from now on, the Odoo add-on will not have the Odoo version number in the package name, and we will rely on pip version constraints to find the good version for your project based on the Odoo version that is pre-installed in your project. You can also use setup tools Odoo to automatically discover all the dependencies of your own customer project. So what I show you here is that you can do a setup.py for a single add-on, and then it's looking for one single add-on in Odoo/addons. But if you do Odoo_addons with an S equal true, then you are telling it that in Odoo/addons you have several add-ons of your project, and it will automatically go and discover the dependencies for you. And so you don't need to enumerate the dependencies in your requirement.txt. You can put them in the depend sections of your manifest. But it's up to you. It's not mandatory. Using the requirement.txt.in manually can also work. And finally, I show you basically a manual technique to manage the requirements file and to freeze it. But there are higher level tools that exist, like Poetry, pipenv, pip tools, that all work to some extent. A few years ago, when I've tried them, I found limitation on them, either in terms of performance or working with Git reference. So I've written my own, which is called pip deep freeze. But yeah, really, I must say that I have not tried Poetry or pipenv recently, so they might work better today, and you may want to give them a try. But at Axon, we are using pip deep freeze, and it's going is giving pretty good results. And so a little look at the future. Those setup directories in add-on repositories are a bit noisy, and we're always asking, people are always asking why they're necessary. Hopefully I've explained that. But it turns out that with modern Python packaging tools, it's not necessary to use setup tools anymore. And so we can declare our own build backend in a file named pyproject.toml. You may have seen that in some modern Python project. And so the future is that instead of creating those setup directories, we will, in the future, have the possibility to put a pyproject.toml file inside each add-on directory to tell pip that each add-on directory is actually a Python project, and tell it how to build it and install it. And I have a prototype for that. It's not very difficult, but it's not ready for consumption. So hopefully next year that will be the approach. But then it will be very similar, except that instead of pointing to the setup directory, you will be able to point directly to the add-on directory, and it will be a little bit more intuitive. But the principle will remain the same, that each add-on directory has to be a regular Python project. And so, yeah, provide a few links. Setup tools Odoo with documentation of how to configure it in full details, and a couple of tools I wrote to work with Odoo Addons manifest, manifest 2, and this one to manage pinned dependencies. And if you want to entertain your kids, if you look at this one. And that's it. So thank you very much. And I think I'm available for questions for a few minutes.
Okay, we have 3 minutes for questions. So for now, we don't have any question on the chat, but you said that the presentation you will get back to the edit mode, installing an add-on with the editing mode.
Say again?
You said that we can install an add-on with edit mode. It's very useful when we are developing for OCA.
Yes. Yes, you can indeed. Let me check. You can. Where is it? Yeah, if you can also type pip install -e of the directory where you have this setup file. And then it's instead of copying the add-on to the side package directory, it's also installing it in so-called editable mode. So the source code stay in place, and you can develop and restart without having to reinstall. And you benefit from the automatic installation of dependencies. So when you are, for instance, working on a pull request, you do a pip install -e of the directory of your local add-on, and then you can work on it. And when it's done, you come back to this syntax for your project. So yeah, that's also very practical. But the important thing is that currently you need to point to the setup directory where the setup.py is located. Yeah. Oh. I look at other questions. Can you still hear me? Hello? I might have a problem here. How to do a setup when developing multiple modules at once? Well, there is documentation. If you go into, it depends what to do. If it's your customer project, you can use setup tools Odoo with the Odoo underscore addons example. So for instance, there is this packaging multiple addons in the setup tools Odoo documentation. So basically what you do is that you create your project like this. You give it your project name, a version, any other setup keyword you want, but then setup requires equal setup tools Odoo, and then you say Odoo addons equal true. And then for recent Odoo versions, you put all your add-ons in Odoo/addons directory. That's important. And then you can install your project in editable mode. So you do pip install -e your project directory, and it will automatically inject this directory in your add-ons path and install all the dependencies of your project. If people are interested, we can do an interactive session this afternoon, for instance, in one of the discussion room where I show an example. So I lost connection. I'm not sure I can do anything for you. No, I'm not a host. I can do that after as well if Graham is not available.
I lost connection. I'm not host, so I don't see the questions.
But I don't see questions. Yeah, maybe there are questions for the. Is Graham there? Let me check.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, my question was, Stéphane, my question was about the installing an add-on in edit mode.
Yeah.
It's very useful when we are working on an OCA module to edit directly the code and see what happened.
Yeah. So can you still see my screen? No, maybe let me check if I can.
No, you are not sharing your screen.
Let me check here. So installing an add-on in editable mode, assuming. So here I'm in a virtual environment, so I have Odoo installed and a couple of add-ons installed here. And then I have an add-on in my add-on in my add-ons. So I have one add-on there. I'm going to use this tool, setup tools Odoo make default. And so I have my setup directory, which you find in OCA repositories, and the setup.py. I'm going to check that the add-on has the correct version. So is going to know that it's an add-on for version 14. And then if I start to do now, you see that the add-on path has the Odoo add-ons, side package Odoo add-ons where the package from pip are installed. And this is from standard Odoo 2, so nothing special here. So then if I do pip install -e setup / add-on 1, so that's where the setup.py is. It's going to do the installation for you. And for some reason it's a bit slow. No, it's okay. And then if I do a pip list, you see that the add-on is installed and it's showing you the editable project location. So where the setup.py is installed. And if I start Odoo, you see that the add-ons path has been extended with setup add-on 1 Odoo add-on. So automatically the location of the add-on directory has been added to the path for you. So when you want to work on a pull request, you just do a git clone of the repository, and then you do a pip install. Instead of adding the full repository to the add-on path, you do a pip install of the setup directory of the specific add-on you want to work on, and then you do your pull request as usual. But then for installation, for installation in your project, my recommendation is to not use the editable mode for add-on and use this syntax. So when you freeze, you get these URLs that pip is able to cache, and it's much more efficient. But in development, yes, editable mode works just nicely. And if your add-ons has dependencies, like for instance, if I modify the manifest to add the dependencies, server environment, for instance, like this, and you'll just redo the pip install. And you see that it has installed the new dependency for you automatically. And you don't need to worry where the dependency is coming from. Of course, you need to be careful because you are downloading stuff from the internet. So you need to make sure that you type the add-on name correctly and so on. But yeah, that's basically basic good practice when you are getting stuff from the dangerous internet.
Okay, thank you, Stéphane. So we already take the time of the break. It's time now for Daniel for his presentation. Yeah. But sorry, Daniel, with co-host, I cannot make you co-host, so I don't know if Grim with us.
I come back as a host to help you. But you are host now, Suel, I see.
With co-host, I can't make another participant co-host.
Or you can promote it as panelist or something.
No, I don't see the options too.
Oh, but maybe it's not necessary since it's a meeting. I think Daniel can speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I can share my screen, so I think we should be fine.
Okay, yes. So for you, Stéphane, there are other questions, but I think they can send to you directly, or as you said, we can plan another interactive sessions. Let's start now with our next.
I'm remaining available on Discord for the whole day, and if there are specific questions, if you want to make an interactive session, just let me know and we'll arrange for something.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for attending.